This is the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast with your host, Kevin Murray.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. On this episode, we have a guest that is a true alpha when it comes to fantasy football and Fantasy Football Expo advice. His skill set profiles as a dynamic fantasy analyst that is he pretty much has a high floor and a ceiling that's to the moon. So you will sometimes see him on Peacock on the Fantasy Football Happy Hour show with Matthew Berry. It's Lord Don't Lose himself, Lawrence Jackson Jr. from NBC Sports. Welcome in, my friend.
See, man, I could appreciate that, Kevin. You be tuning in, right? Because you just went through my whole video from yesterday. So,
yeah,
you know what I'm saying? The ceiling, the floor, the alpha, all that good stuff, man. I appreciate it, man. But nah, man, I'm good, man. I'm just kicking it here. You know, July, this is the calm before the storm for real. So, you know, just crossing the T's and dotting the I's, getting ready to do it again, man.
Yeah, it's about to blow up for sure. So, but I'm excited to have you on. It's always great to connect with you. It's been fun witnessing your rise up in the fantasy sports industry. I remember discovering your content several years back when you were doing videos out of your truck. And I was at Buffalo Wild Wings when you were at the Fantasy Football Expo making some big connections. So I've seen a lot of your rise up, and it's an honor to have you on here.
Yeah, I still remember that time because that was the 2021 Expo where everybody went to the Buffalo Wild Wings, right? Yeah, man, that's what it's really all about, man. I know we'll talk about that a little bit later, but that's just a little prerequisite for that.
For sure. Now, you got a unique background and journey getting to where you are right now. How much of an impact did football have on your childhood growing up in Atlanta?
Yeah, definitely. That was all the impact for me. Playing football, basketball, running track, doing stuff like that where I was growing up, that keep you out of the trouble. So it's either you having fun, learning, playing the sport, building some camaraderie with some other dudes, or you out doing something you ain't got no business doing, you know? So, definitely played football since I was a young buck. Did high school, college, and then some leagues after that as well. So definitely you know how people say, man, this is all I know. I don't want to say that, but football is a good portion of the things I know. It's how I, know a lot of the people I know now. And even then, so the sport itself and just sports in general, that get people to knowing each other and building them type of bonds like that.
For sure. So who are your favorite athletes growing up down there?
Yeah, for sure it was Deion Sanders, because I think any little kid that played corner, or any kid in general, because Deion, the way he dressed on the field and had to play to back it up, the way he dressed on the field is timeless. Like, that could work today. But like, if you look at Tim Brown back then, nobody would want to have that field attire. So Deion, he was clean, especially playing for Atlanta. Then there was Michael Vick. Every kid in Atlanta loved Michael Vick. Soon as he got drafted, everybody was scrounging up the change to get his jersey. Outside of football, obviously, Michael Jordan and then Kobe Bryant came. For me personally, those were some guys, outside of football that I looked up to. And then Allen Iverson, guys like that. But on the football front, Deion Sanders, Michael Vick, and a couple of other Falcons. Jamal Anderson, the guy who made the dirty with him too.
There you go.
So, those were a couple of guys. Just to say something, because a lot of people will say Deion. A lot of other people in our age bracket might say Jerry Rice as well. I see you got him in the background. And obviously Barry Sanders, who he was a different type of superstar. You know what I'm saying? All of those guys had I think all of those guys had like a part of molding us and how we even see the game.
For sure. Now, I got a special place in my heart for some Atlanta sports. Growing up, I hit sports really early. I was obsessed with sports, and there wasn't a lot of games on basketball, baseball on TV, but TBS came through, man. So I was always watching Atlanta Hawks games and Atlanta Braves games. My first memories with basketball was watching Dominique Wilkins, right? And obviously the Jordan Neek, rivalry.
So Atlanta basketball. Let me ask you this, Kevin. I was gonna name him, but I don't know if the viewers might know who this player is. You mentioned Jordan and Dominique. Well, obviously Jordan played into the mid '90s where they would play against the Atlanta Hawks, and the Atlanta Hawks had a point guard named Mookie Blaylock. That was my favorite player of that whole era right there. I actually posted something about him on Instagram a couple weeks ago. So that was one of my guys too, Mookie Blaylock.
Nice. I can remember being in elementary school. Me and my best friend, we would always be playing basketball, and we would love college basketball. So we would simulate, basketball. We'd pretend we were out there, and Mookie Blaylock was one of the guys that we always were trying to be. It was Mookie Blaylock, and then like Ramil Robinson and Derek Coleman, a lot of those guys back in the day. Glenn Rice, a lot of guys that we really love. But Mookie Blaylock was definitely one of the guys that we loved to be. Yeah, so that's awesome. But yeah, so I mean, like the Atlanta Braves were terrible, but I loved baseball, and so I'd watch Dale Murphy play, and then they finally got going. They got Smoltz.
Well, that's when they were good at mid '90s. They was running it. They was that. I don't even watch baseball, right?
Yeah.
And I couldn't name you 10 to 12 players in the whole league right now, but I know that roster from back in the mid '90s with Fred McGriff. You mentioned John Smoltz, Tom Glavine,
Ron Gant.
David Justice, Marquise Grissom, all them dudes.
Yep.
I know more players off that team than total players in the MLB right now, but that's just me. I just don't watch the sport.
Yeah, so I mean, my Atlanta Braves jacket was my prized possession at elementary school. My starter jacket, Atlanta Braves. So good times. But obviously, we're getting back to football. When did you first discover fantasy football?
When I first discovered it was probably around that I actually acknowledged its existence was probably about 2009, maybe. Some dudes that I played football with wanted me to join a league because they know I love football. And me coming, and this is how a lot of NFL players are. I always tell people this. Because I actually was playing football, I didn't care about fantasy. And these dudes on my team, when I first moved up to Jersey, they were like, "Hey, you should join our league." I'm like, "Man, I'm not joining no fantasy. That means nothing." You know what I'm saying? It means nothing. So at that point, I know it exists. I don't really know how it works, but I know it's out there, and I know that there's no defensive players in it in general. You know what I'm saying? Now you got IDP, whatever. A couple years later, maybe 2012, they get me to play, and I won the league. I didn't know no rankings. I didn't know none of that stuff. I just went in and say, well, I'm going to pick the players who I know are the best players. It's actually my mindset today. Now, today there's all type of stats and tools and all that stuff. Now, while, I'll support that and what people do as it, it create opportunities for people. But I'm still sticking to hey, I know it's good football players. So I picked up Julio Jones and Randall Cobb and Michael Vick at Eagles, Michael Vick at the time. Nice. I'm like, I'm just going to pick some good players. So I won a league. I won it 2 years in a row. And, so after winning that one league, because I didn't have multiple leagues. After playing in that league, I'm like, man, I might be all right at this little fantasy football thing. You know what I'm saying? So a couple years go by, I add on a league here and there. And then I meet a guy who I will talk about him more later, but I meet a guy who's in the fantasy industry. So I'm like, hey, I win my fantasy leagues. Can you hook me up with a job? and so he's like, well, it don't quite work like that. It don't quite work like that, Lawrence. And and then a few years after that, I just started making content.
So what inspired you to start making the content?
Yeah, it was pretty much that, man. Around 2017, 2018. At that time, the only people I was aware of that even did fantasy football as work was Matthew Berry, because it was on the ESPN app, and that's what we used. Um, Adam Rank, and maybe uh Michael Fabiano and Marcus Grant. Other than that, I had never knew, like, I didn't know any, and this is while I'm making content.
Wow.
I had to learn a lot of stuff. So what made me do it was I was just like, well, you know what I'm saying? I see what it is. I said, I know if I could get better, I could create a lane for myself. I could do something that hasn't been done and in a certain way. You know what I'm saying? So I kind of just like saw opportunity. I'm not even really like if you ask me, do I die hard love fantasy? Nah, like I love football because football is what got me to fantasy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's things I love about fantasy and it's things I don't love about fantasy. But the things that I love about it obviously outweighs what I don't. You know what I'm saying? So it
Yeah.
was kind of that got me into it, and just knowing that I had an opportunity that before it get extremely flooded, let me sprinkle my little style in here and see what's happening with it.
Well, you are so creative with your own style and all the content you make. Where does that come from? Are you constantly brainstorming 24/7, creative ways to tell your story?
Yeah, most definitely. I'm definitely always thinking about the next move on 24/7, man. It's just I told somebody else in another podcast, technically I'm working 24/7 because it's like when what am I gonna do with the next idea and how am I gonna present it? And man, for real, it just come from just being, you know, being where I'm from and the dudes I grew up with, the good times, and us just laughing and cracking jokes on each other, man. That's where my whole, style and lingo come from, because I tell people I grew up with, I'm like, man, I said people in fantasy think I'm the only dude like this. It's a lot of dudes that like football and they'll present it like this. They just never thought to do it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like but my people they root me on, definitely. My family and friends, folks that were with me from the jump, so it's cool.
That's cool. Now, you obviously put a ton of hard work and hustle into it. Where does that grind come from?
Oh, well, that's just a simple wake up and go, man. Nothing was ever given to me. Nothing was ever given to me or the people around me. So it's like, natural to like, it's just like there's only one way, and that's to go get it. If I sat back and, I wouldn't be here. If I did content and I was this certain way, or I wasn't going hard enough at it, then it wasn't gonna happen for me. I'm always about the network. That's a big thing in this industry right here, just as much as whatever talent you may possess. Just the you know not having the, what they call it, the silver spoon. That'll definitely motivate you to make something of it. So, I'm not surprised at all that I've been able to reach this point. And to be honest, I don't even feel like I'm anywhere close to where it's gonna get.
I love it. I love it. Now, you have done a great job with networking and connecting with people. Tell me about your experience with the Fantasy Football Expo.
Yeah, that's actually, that's where I locked in with a job for the first time in 2021. August 2021, at the expo. Shout out to Ed Williams, formerly of Roto World. He the guy who hired me over there. he was one of the people I met there. And he was like, hey, man, I like your little truck videos. You know what I'm saying? Let's find out a way to work together. And we did that. And I did it on a freelance basis for a whole year, a whole season. And he told me, nothing is guaranteed. It's not a big thing. And it wasn't. I still was working my regular job while working for NBC, right? So I was like, yeah, that. And again, for me, that don't matter to me. Just give me an inch, I'll take the mile. So I did that for a year, and it turned into this. But the expo itself, it just gives you a chance to the expo, and this is like I've been to FSGA too. So the expo gives you more of an experience to meet content creators at every level. It give you a chance to meet content because it's like every year I come back, I want to be at a different level. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you get to meet people. So this coming up Expo 2023, I'll get to meet some people who was in my spot in 2021. And so I can answer the questions for them that I was asking when I came there in 2021. And that's really what it's all about. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then there's the fun part too. But for me personally, I came to the expo on some 80% business, 20% fun. And so as the years go on, I can even that out closer and closer to 50-50. But always about the business first. And that comes naturally just talking to people because you never know who you run into.
True. Now, I assume you have some official advice coming out soon for those attending the expo. Can you provide some unofficial advice for those watching this show or listening to this podcast?
Yeah. That particular video that I do every year for the expo, that will be the official
Yes.
video where I give out 3 do's and don'ts.
There you
Right.
go.
But
Yeah.
the unofficial advice for here will kind of be just what I said, man. Don't be shy to go talk to somebody, man. Don't be afraid to go, get into a conversation and learn about what somebody else got going on, and then you tell them what you got going on, because that's what that is too, right? We got a lot of booths at the expo. Last year, yeah, I may have been a full-time worker in this industry, but I'm still walking around looking at the booths just to see if somebody, got something different going on. You know what I'm saying? I'm always looking at the different stuff because if they're thinking about something different, then they probably somebody thinking like myself, and we probably would mesh well. So I would just say don't have no limits as far as networking and getting to know people.
I love it. Now, the foundation of this game that we love, fantasy football, to me is that home league experience, that live draft, that kind of stuff. What's your most memorable home league experience?
So my most memorable home league experiences is actually one where it's not a live draft, but I do have some live drafts I'll talk about. But this particular one is with dudes that I grew up with. It's a 10-man league that we have, and this year will be our 4th year going into this.
Nice.
I started this league up because I would say 8 of them didn't even play fantasy at that point. So what happened was I created this league for us. We started it up. It's going strong now. And the experiences I get from that is just that we all stay in the loop with each other during football season. And we all talking to smack all football season, giving out bogus trades. No trade ever get completed in that league. No trade ever get completed in that league because it don't matter what it is. You trying to jack somebody for some. But nah, just the camaraderie in that particular league for me, it ain't a lot of money we put into it. We throw something in there, it gotta be some. but it ain't nothing crazy. Just the just all the talking and back and forth with dudes you grew up with. Cause I don't have that, everybody got that home league that you've been in for 20 years and all.
Yeah.
Cause me and these same dudes, we was down for 20 years. We just wasn't playing no fantasy football back then. So
Yeah.
now it's like, hey man, we done made it to a point in life where we are grown now and we doing okay in life. So let's do this, have fun with that. And so that league right there is my favorite, and just the banner every day in that chat is a good enough experience for me.
Yeah, the connections. I mean, to me, that's what it's all about. Staying connected with people. My home league, my primary league, it's people I knew from elementary school, junior high, high school, college. So in family. So it's a good mix, and that's what it's about to me for sure. Now, what in your opinion makes a great live fantasy draft?
Yeah, so I mean, what I'm about to say, it hasn't happened for me specifically yet, but this is what my idea of one is. We just talked about Vegas, right? And I think the one for Scott Fish Bowl is gonna be at Stadium Swim, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken. So
yeah,
that's pretty much what the perfect live draft would be for me. You know what I'm saying? That would,
yeah.
because you got everything you need. You get your food in there. I never ate there, but hopefully it's good food.
I'm sure
You
it's
get
good.
Vegas food is generally good,
Yeah,
but you got your food, your drinks, you get you a good draft board, you got the sun shining on you, you got the pool right there. It can't be too many live draft situations that's better than that.
pretty good. That's pretty. They're gonna have a good time down there for sure.
Yeah.
How about last place punishment ideas? Maybe not stuff that you've done, but stuff that you've seen. I know you spent some time with Matthew Berry, so you probably run across some wild ideas that come through. What are some of the crazy ones that you've seen or thought of?
Is one that I thought of personally, and I see I couldn't pull this off in one of my home leagues. Another one I could. You know how they say people should go streaking? So I don't want that. I don't want you streaking. I don't want to see your stuff.
No,
Um,
no.
but you should have to put on like a man thong, right? And put on, you know how the winner gets a championship belt.
Yeah, yeah.
You get a belt that say fantasy loser with your man thong on, and you gotta go running down with that. So it's not technically streaking. You covered by a belt in some little underwear, but you gotta go out in that, and we gonna roast you on that. We
Hey
gonna
man,
get you. We gonna
yeah,
get you.
that's a pretty good one. How
I don't
about
have you said that one yet?
that's I do got streaking coming down the line, but I might have to modify that and plug in some of this dialogue into that one because that's a good one. I'll definitely note your inspiration on that one.
Do you watch or have knowledge of wrestling? Like
Yeah,
more
in the past, big time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
me too in the past. I don't
yeah,
know the new stuff, but you
yeah,
remember the hardcore title, how they spray painted the word hardcore. So
yeah,
on that belt, you got to spray paint fantasy loser on there and put it in front of you, covering up your beer belly,
yeah.
but you still got the man thong on, and you just got to run down the street with it, and then we post that on social media.
Well, let's see if we can get Trophy Smack to come up with a belt like that, right?
They if anybody can, they can.
For sure, for sure. Now, you talked about your league and staying connected, that camaraderie. What is some of your advice for maximizing league engagement and keeping people connected?
Well, I think a lot of it got to do with how you are with the people on a personal level. I joined the league last year where I knew or have met 3 of the 12 players, and probably every player in that league was the same way. So it wasn't as much banter, as it was in other leagues that I got. You know what I'm saying? So I
Yeah,
think that how you know the people on a personal level, because you might say something to somebody you don't really know, right? And they might take that a certain way, but you get in there with your partners and it's like, hey, you say anything with them,
yeah.
So I think that's a big getting to know the people in your league definitely will help with the engagement, or if the commissioner is just like, some hyper-go-lucky person who just, constantly creating some form of content for the league to keep the league interested. Like maybe some posts like the rankings or whatever, who's got the best chance to win this week, yada yada yada. That'll help keep folks engaged too.
Yeah, commissioners, obviously taking the lead, and when it comes to just doing, making sure everyone's staying connected and communicating, definitely makes a huge difference. I know that for sure. Hey, let's dive into some rapid fire questions. I'll throw out a question or a comment, and then just let me know what first thing that comes to mind.
All right.
What do you love most about fantasy football?
Winning.
Nice. How about what you
That was
touched on it earlier? What do you like least about fantasy football?
Too many stats sometimes.
Okay, that's good. If you played quarterback in the NFL, would you throw right-handed or left-handed?
Both.
I love that Tua video.
Yeah, there you go, right there. I'm not a lefty.
That was great. What are your thoughts on fantasy football slow drafts?
They cool. It's cool. I don't like them better than regular ones, but I definitely don't have a problem with them.
Yeah, no, it definitely fits in the right situation. Who has the most toxic fan base on social media?
49ers, easy. 49ers fans, yeah.
As a Seahawks fan, I can definitely attest to that. I might be biased, but I can agree to that.
No, you ain't biased. It is easily that I have 49er fans agreeing with me that they are the most toxic social media fan base.
Whose content did you consume most prior to getting involved in the industry?
You know, so you mean like, because like I said, around 2017, 2018, I only knew those guys.
Yeah.
And so I would see Matthew Berry name on the ESPN app, but I didn't like actually consume none of that stuff though. I just was like, let me set my lineup, because I didn't know like what, like I didn't care what a RB3 was. There was a point in time in my life I didn't care what that mean. But first getting in some other guys that some people may not know, I would say my buddy Faraz Siddiqui at Upper Hand Fantasy. Him and I kind of started off at the same time, and I noticed him, he noticed me, and I saw that he was doing his content, and he was putting out some good quality, honest content. He wasn't ripping at people decks, he was just putting out his content, and now he's the best independent fantasy football page on Instagram. So Upper Hand Fantasy, definitely.
Oh, I love it. What have been the biggest challenges that you've faced on this journey within the fantasy industry?
The biggest challenges, I would say, for me, because I'm always trying to get better at something. When I first started working at NBC, I wanted to become a better writer. Sorry. I wanted to become a better writer. So I would say one of my biggest challenges is sometimes getting too engulfed in that, and just not taking the time. I definitely done got better with this in the past year, but the last couple of years, just taking time to be like, hey man, you did do something solid. You know what I'm saying? Because it don't always have to be gotta do this, gotta do that, gotta do this. But that's how I felt, and I'm sure that's how a lot of people feel trying to climb the ladder in the industry to gain, some type of employment. But if you can't sit back and just look at what you've done thus far, then it probably means nothing to you.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. Good word. Name a few people that have had a massive impact on you during your journey within the fantasy sports industry.
Oh yeah, definitely. I told you about the guy I asked earlier for a job. Like, oh, give me a job, whatever. So his name is Bill Enright. He's over at SI right now, and him and I played in the same flag football league here in Jersey, and I had no clue he was even in the industry. He'd been in it for a long time. So about 6 years ago, he was like, yo, if you want to do this, you should start an Instagram page and start doing content. Then he asked me if I was able. He's like, yo, can you write an article? I was like, I don't want to, but I will. So he's like, hey man, just make content, but be the same dude that I know you to be when we playing football, and it'll work out. So shout out to Bill Enright, and then Corey Parson, my man Corey Parson, formerly NBC Sports as well. Him and I met a couple of years ago, and we clicked instantly. Me and him, a lot similar in the way we deliver the content and just our train of thought. So before I was even, able to get a job or get to know this or that a person, he was the person there I was talking to. And then when we got to the expo in 2021, he was introducing me to good people, people here and there. So definitely Corey Parson. And I'd be, wild not to say Matthew Berry. Obviously, like he didn't know me from day one, you know what I'm saying? But met him a couple years ago. He was still with ESPN, and he hit me on the DM and was like, yo, this video tight, man. You know what I'm saying? Keep that up. You know what I'm saying? Dope. And then a few months later, I hit him up like, congrats on Peyton Manning saying your name on TV. And then, linked up with Fantasy Life for a little bit. Woo. Fast forward, he come to NBC. There would be no, fantasy football TV show on NBC if Matthew Berry didn't sign with NBC. So that, too, giving me the opportunity to get my mug on TV and talk my juice, you know what I'm saying? So definitely that. And I mean, obviously, he impacted what everybody does or why they want to do it. You know what I'm saying? But he directly, impacted how I'm able to move in this space now. So I don't take that lightly. And off the camera, we got our own relationship and we chop it up from time to time, and that's that. So Corey Parson, Bill Enright, and Matthew Bear. Yeah.
Perfect. I love it. All right. How about Anthony Richardson? What are your thoughts this year?
Oh, Anthony Richardson is going to be the man. Top 5-6 quarterback in fantasy. If you just really keep it simple and look at how things work, that's how I see that happening. Got a good offensive coordinator, obviously, in Shane Steichen. Now, they're going to be like the Diet Mountain Dew Eagles offense last year. So no, it's not. They're not going to explode like that offense did, but it's clear it's the same philosophy, and you got a more explosive quarterback running the ball because that's what he is more than Jalen Hurts. He's more explosive, and then you have a much better running back in this situation. Get the offensive line healthy. That's how I see that. They'll compete for the division. I actually have them winning, the Colts winning that division. The Jaguars were good, but not as good as people think. It's just that they were bad for the past 5-6 years is why people feel like they did so great. I got the Colts winning that division as well.
Nice. How about Kyle Pitts?
Kyle Pitts. Yeah, I hope he do something for me. Still in on him, man. 22 years old, entering his third year in the season. Just stay healthy. Coach Arthur Smith said he went through other things besides the injury. So I'm looking forward to seeing him get back to doing things that he did as a rookie, which is get 1,000 yards. Now, the thing about Kyle Pitts, people will say this about Kyle Pitts. Well, his 1,000-yard rookie season came in chunks. Now, my question to those people would be, Do you want him to get 62.5 yards every single game? Because sure, he'll get you 1,000 like that. Or do you want the opportunity for him to get that 150 yards that you know he can get, and that you know only a few other tight ends even got the ability to do that? So yeah, he had a couple games here and there, but I expect more consistency now that you got Desmond Ridder going into the camp knowing that he'll be the starter. You already got one of the best offensive lines of football. I'm still firing up Kyle Pitts in 2023.
I love it. No, yeah, it's true. I mean, I think chunk points like that from a tight end position where a lot of people aren't getting anything, those are weekly winners. You kind of want that. You want some inconsistency and some big pops from the tight end position.
Certainly.
I love it. How about your guy, Lamar Jackson? What are you expecting from him this year?
MVP season coming up, man. I was looking the other day on BetMGM. I saw his over under passing set at 3,500, right? Which that will be a career high for him, but it's still low, right? That number is a number that you're gonna get if he misses 3 or 4 games. It'd be crazy to see him miss 5 games for 3 years in a row, but we know how injuries work. They're random. Most injuries are random. His injury last year has nothing to do with his injury from 2021, right? Todd Monken, Odell Beckham, Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman healthy, J.K. Dobbins healthy, solid defense on the other side of the ball. This has all the makings for Lamar Jackson to be the first player to throw for 4,000 and rush for another 1,000, and that'll be good enough for him to win the MVP.
That sounds pretty sweet for sure. So speaking of quarterbacks, who are you going to come away with in most of your drafts? Like, name a quarterback that you'll likely come away with in a lot of your drafts.
Yeah. So most of the guys that are dual threats. So the Lamar Jacksons, the Jalen Hurtses, the last of those guys being Anthony Richardson. So if you're going to ask me about the first couple of guys that I want, that's not that, well, then that's Tua Tagovailoa, obviously. Well, Joe Burrow will be the obvious one. So I don't want to be obvious. Tua is still being drafted outside of the top 12 quarterbacks in some leagues, which is ridiculous to me. I understand it from last year because people didn't know. Well, now you know. Somebody's got to deliver those guys the ball, and that's who you want is Tua. Still liking Geno Smith. I like him even like nothing about his situation got worse, right? It only got better. So if you're looking for guys, who aren't gonna give it to you on the ground, those are some of the guys I like there.
I like it. Name a couple running backs that you'll likely come away with in your drafts.
Yeah, well, this is not quite the sleeper, but he's definitely being slept on. It's Dalvin Cook. There seems to be the narrative going around that he's washed, despite the fact that he just almost ran for 1,200 yards at 4.5 yards a pop. Ran an 81-yard run this year. That's the third longest run of last season, right? There's nothing that showed me that he's even got a slither of decline. The main issue was his shoulder that's been hurt the past couple years. And, he said he's got that fixed up now. I know he's sitting on a couple deals. Obviously, the value will fluctuate depending on where he goes. The best landing spot, obviously, being the Dolphins. And, people might feel like he might share carries with Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson and Devon Achane. But then once you repeat that, think about that. Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson, Dalvin Cook. Why would you be coinciding carries to them? No disrespect to them, but we talking about Dalvin Cook, who's averaged 1,200 rushing yards the past 4 seasons. So I'll take him. I like Jahmyr Gibbs at a better value, obviously, than Bijan Robinson, because Bijan Robinson is being drafted at his ceiling as opposed to, Jahmyr Gibbs, who's going in the 5th round, which could move up to the 3rd. once we get into training camp.
Yeah.
But I like his potential. And the reason he's getting drafted there, right? Because he's got David Montgomery, who will be a factor. Let's not make no mistake. But the way the Lions run their offense, the way you saw what they tried to do, at least with DeAndre Swift, you just think about Jahmyr Gibbs in that situation, and then just bump up the stats a little bit.
I like it. How about a couple wide receivers that you might leave most of your drafts with?
Yeah, so Michael Pittman. I feel like it'll be fairly easy for me to get him because I'm people are maybe feeling like, Anthony Richardson, they won't throw the ball a lot. I can assure you that won't be the case. One, if they're not throwing, then they're gonna be a winning football team. You know what I'm saying? So I like Michael Pittman. I like Jerry Jeudy. I like the Russell Wilson bounce back, and I like Jerry Jeudy to be the beneficiary of that. And if we're talking tight end, I'm obviously going. We just talked about we just talked about Kyle Pitts, but I'm interested to see what Darren Waller is looking like because he's their best receiver. At this point, unless we get some surprising news that the Giants is in play to get DeAndre Hopkins, I'm looking for Darren Waller to lead that team in targets.
Good stuff. Now, you definitely deliver some great advice, again, with your Expo advice and all that. What advice do you have for aspiring fantasy football analysts that are looking to get more involved in the industry?
Yeah, it's crazy because this advice was probably different 5 years ago, right? But now the way things work and how big social media is, look, we got everybody going from Twitter to Threads and juggling that now, right?
Yeah.
Social media is big. I would advise people to use your online, but don't be too online. What I mean by that, don't be too engulfed in battling it out in every Twitter thread. You ain't gotta battle it out. You don't gotta prove yourself. All you have to do, because the people are gonna let you know, you put the content out and let it be what it may. So that's that part of it. That's the online part of it. Truly be humble. It's hard for some people to do because if that's not what you naturally are, you try to act like you are. You know what I'm saying? But be humble, be gracious. Build the relationships. We talked about that earlier. Build the relationships, and that comes with being humble. More people want to interact with you when they feel like they getting a genuinely humble person. There's probably people out there who may have a misconception about me and may not feel that way about me, so they wouldn't want to interact with me. But that's why there's good things like the Expo. You could see people face to face and you could get real vibes in that sense. So I would say, just don't be too online while pushing your content online, and then just build solid relationships, because building every relationship ain't good. Every relationship and networking thing, like you want to try to surround yourself with people to where you want to be. That's what I've done. Like I want to be around people who can help me help somebody else down the line. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's great advice, Lawrence. Now, is there anything we haven't covered that you'd like to share before we close things out here today?
Nah. Well, I got a rap album coming out. Now I'm just playing.
That's good. Tell the listeners where they can find you.
Yeah. Like you see here on the screen, every social media platform, including Threads, at Lord Don't Lose. All my content can be found on NBCSports.com through the social media accounts as well. We got the fantasy football draft guide coming up here from NBC Sports Roto World. So be on the lookout for that. And that's about it, man.
I love it. Yeah, make sure you're following Lawrence everywhere. Content is authentic and real, and it's outstanding stuff. Thank you so much, Lawrence, for joining me on this episode, and I cannot wait to see what's in store for you in 2023.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. Until next time, be sure to follow and subscribe to all of FFU's social media accounts for daily content.